My own son sold off our family farm while I was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for my life. My name is Daniel Foster, and I truly believed I'd raised an honest man. But Ryan figured the land was his by default, so why bother waiting? He had trips to take with his wife, a taste for luxury, and a dying father he thought would never notice. What he didn't realize was that his simple farmer dad had been holding on to secrets worth nearly $575 million. When I discovered what Ryan had done, I didn't shout, I didn't threaten, and I sure didn't make a scene. Instead, I picked up the phone and dialed a few numbers. If you're listening to this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because what you're about to hear is a story about family, respect, and the danger of underestimating the wrong man. It all began 3 months ago, when my body reminded me I wasn't as young as I liked to pretend. June 15th, 2024. Providence Medical Center, room 314. Right before the anesthesia pulled me under, I told Ryan one simple thing: take care of the farm. Looking back now, I should have seen the storm coming. The warning signs had been right in front of me for months. Ryan had started rolling his eyes every time I brought up the old days, dismissing the value of what we'd built. He talked constantly about upgrading our lifestyle. His wife, Emily, was even worse. She posted videos online from my kitchen, her 15,000 followers watching while she insulted the farm, calling it a dump, all while eating food I'd compensated. The disrespect showed up in little ways at first. April, a family dinner. I was mid-sentence when Ryan cut me off. Dad, you're 71. It's time to let the younger generation take the reins. Take the reins of what? I asked. Everything. The farm. The finances. The future. Emily nodded while filming for her followers, announcing how they were finally moving forward. I tried to explain the truth, that the farm wasn't just about crops anymore, that I had other investments, other irons in the fire. Ryan laughed in my face. Investments? Dad, you drive a 6-year-old Ford pickup. You shop at Walmart. What investments? Emily chimed in from behind her phone, mocking me. Honey, your dad's just afraid of change. Old folks get like that. Old folks. I was sitting right there. The second sign came in May. I'd mentioned needing to fly to Seattle for a meeting. Ryan looked at me like I'd lost my mind. What meeting? Dad, you're retired. You plant corn and soybeans. There are business matters I need to handle, I said. What business? Who are you meeting with? I'd kept my 2 lives separate, my farm life and my business life. 40 years of habit. Ryan saw my silence as proof I was confused. Emily even suggested I was making up stories. She posted clips online about elderly relatives slipping into fantasy worlds. They thought I was losing my grip. The truth was simpler. I'd built something far bigger than they could imagine, and I'd never let them in on it. Back in 1987, I invented an automated soil analysis system. Patent number United States 10,789,234. That invention became the backbone of agritech innovations. But to Ryan and Emily, I was just the old man in the John Deere cap, who wore the same overalls every day, who preferred cash over credit, who lived in a farmhouse built in 1924. They couldn't see past the disguise. Soon, Ryan started talking about me like I was already gone. Emily and I have been discussing Dad's situation. We think it's time for changes. What kind of changes? I asked. Power of attorney, in case you can't make decisions anymore. I can still make my own decisions. Can you? Yesterday, you couldn't even find your keys. My keys were locked in my office, the one place I kept my computers, my patents, and my direct line to Agritech headquarters. But I couldn't explain that without unraveling everything. So I just looked old, tired, and confused. Emily recorded it all, crafting a neat little narrative online about my declining health, about how Ryan's inheritance might be mismanaged, about how tough it was to care for stubborn elderly relatives. She was building a story. I just didn't realize how far she was willing to push it. The night before my heart attack, I overheard them in the kitchen. The farm's worth at least $3 million, Ryan said. Maybe more. So why are we living like we're broke? Because your dad controls everything, Emily snapped. And he's never going to change. Maybe something will change him, Ryan replied. I thought it was just venting. Kids impatient for an inheritance they hadn't earned. I didn't realize they were planning to speed things up. When I woke up from surgery on June 18th, Ryan was sitting by my hospital bed with papers in hand. Dad, I need you to sign these, he said. My eyes were still foggy from the anesthesia. What are they? Just insurance forms. Medical power of attorney. In case something happens. I should have read them carefully. But my son was holding them, talking about protecting me, about making sure I got the best care. And what father doesn't trust his own child? So I signed. 3 days after my first surgery, while I was still knocked out from a second one, Ryan took the authority I'd signed over and used it to sell our 520-acre farm to Westfield Development Corporation for $1,200,000. Just like that. The land my great-grandfather plowed, the soil my father and I worked for decades, 4 generations of foster history, gone with a signature I never truly gave. I later learned the paperwork had been executed on June 22nd at 3:47 in the afternoon. Ryan had strolled into the First National Bank of Millbrook Valley with that power of attorney and walked out holding a cashier's check for $1,200,000. He sold my life's work for barely a third of its real worth, $3,800,000, according to the appraisal I'd had done 6 months earlier for estate planning. And here's the part that twisted the knife. He didn't do it to pay for my care. My hospital bills came to $127,000, and I'd already covered them in cash so my family wouldn't be burdened. Ryan did it to bankroll a vacation. By June 25th, Ryan and Emily were splashing Instagram with glossy photos from the Maldives. Yes, the Maldives, at the Four Seasons Resort. $8,000 a night. Swimming with dolphins. Champagne breakfasts. Sunset dinners that cost more than some people make in a month. Emily even tagged their overwater villa. Finally living the life we deserve. Sometimes you have to take control of your own destiny. #blessed, #millionaire mindset, #living my best life. She tagged the resort, the location, even the bottle of Dom Perignon they were drinking, $350 a pop. While I was learning to walk again in physical therapy, they were burning through $96,000 in a month and a half. But the real loss wasn't money. It was trust. It was watching my own son toast himself in paradise while erasing his family's legacy. And it was knowing that if I had actually died, he would have evaded justice. I found out about the sale on September 12th. I'd been back from recovery for 4 days. Sorting the mail, I opened a letter from Westfield Development Corporation. Thank you for your recent land sale. Construction on Foster Commons Shopping Center will begin October 1st. Foster Commons, naming their mall after the very family whose land they'd bulldozed. I called the bank. They told me everything was legitimate. Power of attorney properly executed, signatures verified, money transferred. Then I called Ryan. Oh, that, he said, his tone as casual as if he'd sold a used pickup instead of our family's farm. Yeah, I handled that while you were sick. Figured it was time. Time for what? I asked. Time to liquidate some assets. Dad, you nearly died. Somebody had to be practical about our financial situation. Our financial situation, as though he'd been supporting me. You sold the farm for $1.2 million. It was worth $3.8. According to who? Some county assessor? Dad, I got market value. Westfield doesn't overpay for anything. He was right about one thing. Westfield Development was notorious for scooping up rural properties on the cheap from desperate families. What Ryan didn't know was who really owned Westfield Development. That conversation would come later. For now, I just needed to gauge the damage. Where's the money, Ryan? Invested in our future. Emily and I made some moves while you were recovering. Moves. Like 6 weeks in the Maldives counted as a portfolio. I want to see the documentation. Dad, you're still recovering. Let me handle the business side. That phrase, let me handle things. The same words he'd used at dinner. The same words he'd used to justify taking control of my life while I was unconscious. He had stolen from me. But worse than that, he had stolen my choice, my agency, my right to decide what happened to my own property. And he'd done it with a smile, calling it love. Now the stakes were clear. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about whether family meant anything. whether respect still existed, whether a man who had worked his whole life had any right to control his own legacy. Ryan thought he had already won. He had no idea what he had started. The next day, September 13th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I called him back. Ryan, we need to talk. Dad, I'm at work. Can this wait? He worked as a regional sales manager for Midwest Farm Supply, $78,000 a year selling tractors to men who actually farmed their own land. No, it can't wait. You sold my farm. Silence. Then a sigh. Our farm. And yes, I handled that situation. You handled it? I never signed anything. You signed the power of attorney for medical decisions and financial ones too. Emily found a lawyer who explained it. When someone's incapacitated, family has to step up. Emily found a lawyer. Of course she did. I wasn't incapacitated, I snapped. I was unconscious. Same thing legally, he said. It wasn't the same thing, I replied. And right then, I knew exactly how far they'd gone, and exactly how far I'd have to go to take my life back. Ryan had clearly rehearsed for this showdown. You want to explain to me, I asked, why you sold land worth $3.8 million for $1.2? Where are you getting $3.8 from, Dad? That's fantasy land. County appraisal. 6 months ago. County appraisals aren't real market value. Look, I know this is hard, but somebody had to make the tough calls. Tough calls. I said, you talk like you saved the family from bankruptcy instead of robbing your father blind. What tough calls? I've got no debt. The farm makes money. Profitable. Ryan scoffed. Dad, you cleared maybe $40,000 last year on crops. He thought that was all I earned. There are other considerations, I said. What other considerations? Dad, I've seen your books. You live on Social Security and corn checks. That's not sustainable. He'd seen my farm accounts, not my real finances. You had no right, I snapped. I had power of attorney. I had every right. His voice was sharp now, the polite mask slipping. That power of attorney was for medical emergencies. It covered everything, he shot back. Emily made sure of that. There it was. Emily had made sure. This wasn't just Ryan's impulsiveness. It was a plan. Let me ask you something, son, I said quietly. Did you actually read the contract before you signed it? What contract? The sale agreement with Westfield Development. Of course I read it. I'm not stupid. Good, I said. Then you know who owns Westfield Development. Silence. A long one. Some development company. Does it matter? It matters to me. Why? I let the quiet stretch, let him twist a little. Dad, you're being paranoid. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're not thinking straight. Not thinking straight. The same phrase Emily had used. Probably rehearsed. I'm thinking clearer than you, I said. Are you? Because you're starting to sound confused. Look, he said, I know change is hard for old people. There it was again. Old people. I'm not confused, Ryan. And I'm not stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. You sold my land to travel with your wife. We didn't travel, he said. We invested in experiences. Big difference. Invested in experiences. $8,000 hotel rooms are investments now? How do you even know what we spent? Instagram, I said. Emily posted everything. The receipts. The $350 champagne. The $5,000 shopping sprees. The dolphin trips. That's our business. It became my business when you used my money to pay for it. Your money, Dad? That came from the farm sale. The farm you couldn't manage anymore. Couldn't manage. Past tense. Like I was already dead. I managed that farm for 40 years. And now it's time for someone else to manage things, he said flatly. Someone else? Meaning you? I think I can be more realistic, Dad. You were clinging to a property you couldn't afford to maintain. Trying to farm land you're too old to work. Living in a house that needs $50,000 in repairs. None of it was true, but it sounded polished. Practiced. Like a caring son making hard decisions for an aging father. The house is fine. The roof leaks. The foundation's cracked. The electrical's from the 1970s. He'd built himself a list, probably with Emily's help. And you fixed all that? I asked. By selling to developers? I solved the problem by liquidating an asset that had become a liability. Liquidating an asset, I repeated. You're talking like a consultant, not a son. Whose asset was it, Ryan? Yours, he said. But you weren't in a position to make rational decisions. Rational decisions. In his world, anything that didn't involve selling was irrational. And you were. Somebody had to be. Somebody had to be, or somebody wanted to be. What's that supposed to mean? It means you wanted the money. I wanted security for all of us. Dad, you almost died. What if you needed long-term care? What if the farm sat empty for years? What if, I said. You're building imaginary emergencies to justify real theft. But you could have died, he said. I could get struck by lightning tomorrow. That doesn't give you the right to sell my truck today. This is different. How? Because you're not 25 anymore. Because life happens. Because someone has to plan for reality. Reality, I said. Your reality. Where I'm too old, too sick, too confused to control my own life. You want to talk about reality, Dad? I think I know plenty about reality. Do you? I asked. Because here's a reality check. You didn't just sell my farm. What are you talking about? You sold it to me. Dead silence. What? Westfield Development Corporation. Check the incorporation papers. Dad, you're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense. You just sold my land to my company. Your company? Dad, you don't have a company. Don't I? You're a farmer. Am I? I could hear him breathing on the other end, trying to put the puzzle together. Prove it, old man, he said at last. And there it was. The mask dropped. The real Ryan, the one who thought he was untouchable, finally showed. Prove it, old man. I will, I said. After I hung up the phone with Ryan, I sat at the kitchen table for a long while, just staring at the oak surface I'd eaten meals on for 3 decades. That table had seen everything. Family dinners, Ryan scribbling out homework, the nights I tried to teach him chess, and now the memory of him sneering at me, calling me an old man. I brewed a pot of coffee, not the powdered instant kind I usually settled for, but real coffee, strong and heated, and carried a mug with me as I walked to the one part of the house Ryan had never set foot in. My office. Most folks don't bother locking the inside doors of their own homes, but I'd always kept that one sealed off. Habit, I suppose, from the days when corporate espionage was more than just a word in the news. The lock wasn't a flimsy deadbolt either. It was electronic, biometric, a fingerprint scanner I'd had installed back in 1998, the year Agritech went public. The room hadn't changed since the morning before my heart attack. 3 computers sat humming on their desks. 2 dedicated phones. Filing cabinets stuffed with patent paperwork, securities and exchange commission filings, corporate records. The walls were lined with framed articles I'd never shown Ryan. Local farmer invents revolutionary soil detector. The Oregonian, March 15, 1987. Fosters agricultural innovation, secures military contract. Portland Business Journal, June 3, 1992. Agritech Innovations initial public offering raises $340 million. Wall Street Journal, October 12, 1998. The Hidden Billionaire, Daniel Foster's Quiet Empire. Forbes, March 8, 2019. 40 years of blood, sweat, and building. A lifetime of work Ryan couldn't begin to imagine, because I'd never told him. I'd wanted him to carve his own path, earn his own victories, and find respect the honest way. Instead, he'd chosen to steal mine. I lifted the secure phone, the one with a direct line straight to Seattle. Kate, it's Tom. Catherine Blake had been my attorney for 26 years. A sharp corporate lawyer, the woman who'd steered Agritech's expansion into 17 countries. Tom, how are you? She asked. I heard about the surgery. I'm fine, but I need you to do something. Name it. I need my complete authority at Agritech reinstated. And I want every piece of documentation connected to Westfield Development Corporation. She hesitated. Westfield? Tom, that's one of our subsidiaries. What do you need with their paperwork? My son sold my farm to them. There was a pause. Your son sold your farm? To us? He doesn't know it's us. Kate burst out laughing. Oh, this is rich. What did he sell it for? $1.2 million. Good Lord, Tom. That land is worth at least $4 million. What on earth was he thinking? He thought his old man was too dim to notice. And now, I said, he's about to learn exactly who owns Westfield Development Corporation. When do you want to move on this? Soon, but not quietly. I want observers. I love the way you think, she said. What's the plan? The town council meeting. October 3rd. Westfield scheduled to present development plans for Foster Commons. Foster Commons? Kate chuckled. They're naming the mall after your family. The irony is perfect. I want everything, Kate. Incorporation documents, ownership structure, securities and exchange commission filings. And I want you there. I wouldn't miss it. And Tom, did your son really call you an old man? Those were his exact words. Well, she said with a grin I could hear through the phone, he's about to meet a very wealthy old man. After we hung up, I flipped open my laptop. The system was locked behind layers of encryption, tied directly into Agritech's private network. The screen lit up with the life I'd hidden away. 847 active patents, 84 international offices, 2,400 employees. Company valuation, $575 million. All of it built from a single idea, a soil detector I'd designed that could read crop yields, mineral content, and moisture levels in real time. That little invention had turned into an empire. And through it all, I kept living like a farmer because that was who I was. The business was business. The farm was home. At least until Ryan sold it out from under me. Now it wasn't just business anymore. Now it was personal. My inbox held 43 unread messages from Seattle, board meeting requests, acquisition proposals, quarterly reports waiting on my sign-off. I'd been gone 3 months, but the company kept running smoothly. That was how I'd built it. Still, my signature carried weight. My 73% ownership stake meant I still controlled it all. Ryan thought he'd sold the farm to a faceless developer. In truth, he'd sold it to me. And soon enough, he'd find out what that meant. The town council session was set for October 3rd, 7 o'clock sharp, at Millbrook Valley Community Center. I hadn't planned on attending in person, but then the phone rang. Mr. Foster? A woman's voice. This is Laura Green from the town council. We understand your son sold your farm to Westfield Development. That's right. Well, Westfield has requested to present their plans tonight for Foster Commons Shopping Center. We thought you might want to be present. I'll be there. One more thing, she added. Your son Ryan called. He said he'd be presenting on behalf of the family. On behalf of the family. Of course he would. I got to the community center early, 7:15 on the dot. The place could squeeze in about 85 folks if every chair was taken. Familiar faces everywhere. Farmers, shop owners, council members. The kind of crowd that shows up whenever somebody's about to build something new on old ground. Ryan was already there in the front row, dressed like a man who'd just been promoted. Navy blue suit, crisp tie. Probably cost him a month of his paycheck. Emily sat next to him, phone propped up, live streaming every breath to her Instagram followers. Good evening, Millbrook Valley, she chirped into the camera. We're here at the town council meeting where my husband is about to share our family's exciting contribution to the community. Our family's contribution. She was spinning the whole sale like it was charity work. I slipped quietly into a seat near the back. Ryan never noticed me. Council Chairman Frank Reynolds slammed the gavel and called things to order. First on the agenda tonight, the Westfield Development presentation regarding the proposed Foster Commons Shopping Center. Ryan Foster will be presenting on behalf of the family. On behalf of the family. Of course. Ryan stood up smooth as silk, voice polished, posture perfect. You could tell he'd rehearsed every line, probably with Emily coaching him from behind the camera. Thank you, Chairman Reynolds. Council members, neighbors, he began, smiling like a politician. Tonight marks a new chapter for Millbrook Valley, a time when we welcome progress instead of clinging to the past. Clinging to the past. That was me he was talking about. For 4 generations, he went on. The Foster family has farmed 520 acres on the east side of town. Good land, productive land. But farming alone just isn't enough anymore. According to who? My father, Daniel Foster, spent his life working that land. But at 71, after a serious heart attack, he recognized it was time for change. Recognized. like I'd made the decision myself. So we made the difficult choice to sell the property to Westfield Development Corporation. Not for personal gain, but for the good of the community. Not for personal gain. Tell that to the Maldives Resort. Foster Commons will bring jobs, retail, and economic growth to our town. It's a legacy that benefits everyone instead of just one family. The crowd nodded along. It sounded noble, forward-thinking. Emily whispered commentary into her phone. So proud of my husband for making these tough decisions. Ryan continued, selling family land is never easy. But sometimes we have to think beyond ourselves. Think beyond ourselves. Like blowing $96,000 on vacation was selfless. I know some people may question this decision. Whether an old farmer should have let go of his life's work. Old farmer. There it was again. But I want to assure everyone this decision was made with entire family consent and careful consideration. My father may not be here tonight, but he supports this development 100%. That was when I stood up. Actually, I said, my voice carrying across the room, your father is here. Every head turned. Ryan spun around, his face draining of color. Dad, what are you doing here? Listening to you lie. Emily's live stream captured every second. Her follower count was probably spiking as the drama unfolded. Chairman Reynolds looked uncertain. Mr. Foster, would you like to address the council? I would. I walked to the front of the room. Ryan stayed frozen for a heartbeat, then stepped aside. I faced the crowd. About 85 people now dead silent. Emily's phone still pointed at me. My name is Daniel Foster, I said. I own the farm my son just told you about. Or I did. While I was unconscious in the hospital, he sold it. A ripple of murmurs rolled through the audience. This wasn't the polished, feel-good presentation they'd come for. My son told you this decision was made with entire family consent. That's false. He forged a power of attorney and sold my property without my knowledge or permission. Ryan found his voice. Dad, you're confused. We discussed this. We discussed it after you'd already sold it. You signed the papers. I signed medical power of attorney, not financial. Chairman Reynolds's eyes darted between us like he was watching a tennis match. Gentlemen, perhaps this is a family matter best discussed privately. No, I said. This is exactly where it should be discussed, publicly, with observers. I turned to Ryan. You want to tell these people what you got for my farm? We got fair market value. How much, Ryan? Dad, the specific numbers aren't. $1.2 million, I said. For 520 acres of prime agricultural land. The crowd stirred. Even by rural Oregon standards, that was a giveaway. And you want to tell them what you did with that money? Ryan's jaw clenched. We invested it. In what? Various opportunities. Specifically, Dad, this isn't the place. 6 weeks in the Maldives. $8,000 a night. Dolphin tours. Shopping sprees. Champagne that costs more than most people earn in a day. Emily had stopped live streaming. This wasn't the narrative she'd planned. Ryan tried to claw back control. My father is still recovering from major surgery. He's not thinking clearly about complex financial decisions. I'm thinking very clearly. Are you? Because you seem to be making accusations. I'm stating facts. You stole my farm. You lied to this council. And now you're standing here taking credit for community service when all you did was fund your vacation. Ryan's face tightened, but he tried to keep his voice steady. Dad, you're embarrassing yourself. Am I? I asked, looking him dead in the eye. Then answer me right here, in front of all these folks. Do you even know who owns Westfield Development Corporation? His cheeks went pale. Some development company. Which development company? It doesn't matter who owns it. It matters to me, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Because these people deserve to know exactly who you sold my land to. Dad, stop. Who owns Westfield Development? I don't know. You don't know? I repeated slowly. You sold 520 acres of our family's ground to a company you know nothing about. The room went still. Even Emily had set her phone down. You want to know who owns Westfield Development Corporation? I asked. Dad, please. I do. The words floated there like smoke. Ryan blinked. What? I own Westfield Development Corporation, I said. 73% stake. Incorporated in Delaware. 2019. That's impossible. Is it? I asked softly. You sold my farm to my own company, son, for a third of its real value. He looked like someone had hit him square in the chest. You're lying. Am I? I turned to the audience. I'd like to introduce someone who can verify every word of what I'm saying. The doors at the back opened and Catherine Blake walked in, briefcase in hand, calm as a summer morning. This is Catherine Blake, I said, General Counsel for Agritech Innovations. Kate set her briefcase on the table, flipped the latches, and drew out a stack of papers thick as a phone book. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice cutting clean through the murmurs. I have here the incorporation papers for Westfield Development Corporation, a subsidiary of Agritech Innovations. Daniel Foster is the majority shareholder. The room erupted into whispers. Ryan was still staring at me like he'd never seen me before. You're a farmer. I'm a lot of things, son. But you drive a pickup truck. You shop at Walmart. Yes, I do. You live in the same house my great-grandfather built. Correct. But how? How did a simple farmer build a $575 million technology company? His mouth opened, but nothing came out. That's a conversation for another time, I said. Right now we've got a more immediate problem. What problem? You committed fraud, I said quietly. And you did it in front of 85 observers. The community center was so silent I could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing. Ryan stood there like a statue, still trying to process what I'd said. Emily had turned white as chalk, clutching her phone like it could save her. Chairman Reynolds cleared his throat. Mr. Foster, which Mr. Foster should I be addressing? The one who actually owns the property, I answered. Kate stepped forward, her presence filling the room the way only 26 years of corporate law can. If I may, Chairman Reynolds, she said, I'd like to present some documentation for the record. She spread the papers across the table. These are the incorporation documents for Westfield Development Corporation, filed in Delaware on March 15, 2019. As you can see, Westfield is a wholly owned subsidiary of Agritech Innovations. People leaned forward, craning to see. And this, Kate continued, is the shareholder registry for Agritech Innovations. Daniel Foster holds 73% of all shares, making him the controlling owner of both companies. She looked straight at Ryan. Which means, Mr. Wilson, that when you sold your father's farm to Westfield Development, you essentially sold it back to your father. That's, Ryan started, then stopped. That's what? I asked. Impossible? Which part is impossible? The fact that I own the companies, or the fact that you sold to me? You're a farmer, he whispered. I am a farmer, I said. I'm also the founder and majority shareholder of Agritech Innovations, a company that develops agricultural technology for farmers worldwide. Kate pulled out one more document. Perhaps this will help, she said. It was a Forbes magazine, March 2019. She held it up so the crowd could see the cover. The Hidden Billionaire, Daniel Foster's Quiet Empire. She flipped it open and read aloud. Daniel Foster prefers overalls to Armani, pickup trucks to private jets, and small-town Oregon to Silicon Valley. But don't let the humble exterior fool you. This 71-year-old farmer has quietly built one of America's most successful agricultural technology companies. Ryan snatched the magazine, staring at my picture on page 42. Current net worth, Kate read on, $575 million. Built from a single patent for an automated soil analysis system, Agritech Innovations now operates in 17 countries and holds over 800 patents in agricultural technology. The crowd buzzed louder, phones out, people Googling Agritech right there in their seats. Emily finally found her voice. This is fake. You're making this up. Kate's smile was razor sharp. Would you like to see the Securities and Exchange Commission filings? The tax records? The patent documents? She opened her briefcase wider. I brought everything, including the original patent filed by Daniel Foster in 1987, patent number US 108-32537, automated soil analysis system. The same system, I added, that Agritech has been licensing to John Deere, KIH in New Holland for the past 15 years. Ryan kept staring at that Forbes magazine like it was written in a foreign language. But you drive a 2018 Ford pickup, he stammered. Because it gets good mileage, I answered. You shop at Walmart. They have the best prices, I said. And you still live in that old house from 1924. It is a good house, I told him, my voice steady. My great-grandfather built it to last. Finally, he asked the question I'd been waiting for. The one that cut deeper than money or titles. But why? Because I'm a farmer, Ryan. That's what I've always been. I swept my eyes across the room. Most of those folks sitting there were farmers themselves. They knew what I meant. The company wasn't built so I could get rich, I continued. It was built to help men and women like us grow better crops. Work smarter, not harder. That soil detector I invented back in 1987? I made it because I was tired of guessing. I wanted real information, real numbers in my hands instead of hunches. Emily whispered, almost to herself, $485 million. That's what 37 years of helping farmers make smarter decisions adds up to. I said, every patent, every product, every tool. We designed them to make farming more efficient, more sustainable. Kate laid another sheet on the table. Here is the company's original mission statement, she said. Written by Daniel Foster in 1987, to provide farmers with the technological tools they need to feed the world profitably and responsibly. I never changed it, I told the crowd. Never packed up and moved to Seattle. Never stopped working the ground myself. 90% of Agritech's profits go right back into research and development. Chairman Reynolds shook his head, looking almost stunned. Mr. Foster, if all this is true, why didn't anybody know? Because the moment folks find out you've got money, I said quietly, they stop seeing the man and start seeing a wallet. I just wanted to be treated like the farmer I've always been. Then I turned to Ryan. Case in point. He moved restlessly in place. Dad, if I'd known. If you'd known what? I cut in. That I wasn't poor? That I wasn't stupid? Would you have finally respected me? Valued my judgment? Asked permission before you sold what wasn't yours to sell? I would have. You would have what? Treated me like family? Like a father instead of an obstacle? The room went so quiet you could hear chairs creak. You called me an old man, I said. Said I was too confused to make choices about my own land. And then you sold it. My life's work. So you and your wife could play at being rich for 6 weeks in the Maldives. Ryan dropped his gaze to the floor. Dad, I'm sorry. Are you sorry you took it from me? I asked. Or are you just sorry you got uncovered? His voice cracked. I made a mistake. A mistake. I leaned forward. No, Ryan. Forgetting to put the trash out is a mistake. What you did was fraud. That word landed like a hammer. His head snapped up. Fraud. Kate's voice was firm, all business. Falsifying a power of attorney is fraud in the first degree under Oregon law. Selling land without legal authorization is theft in the first degree. Both are Class B felonies. Ryan looked stricken. But, I thought, the lawyer said. What lawyer? Kate asked. Ryan's eyes flicked toward Emily. She was still crying, shoulders shaking. Some lawyer Emily found online, he muttered. He said the power of attorney covered financial decisions too. Kate's smile was sharp as a blade. Did you actually show him the document? I know. Emily handled it. Well, I've read the document myself, Kate said. It very clearly limits authority to medical decisions only. Financial powers require a completely separate authorization. The bank made a mistake, and they're already investigating. Chairman Reynolds rubbed his temples. Good Lord. So what happens now? I looked at Ryan, my son, the boy who once begged me to teach him how to drive the tractor, now the man who had sold off my life's work behind my back. That depends on him, I said. What do you mean? Reynolds asked. I mean, Ryan has some choices, I said slowly. He can cooperate with the law, work toward restitution, and maybe, just maybe, begin to rebuild trust. Or he can keep pretending he's the target. Ryan's voice was small now. Dad, I never meant. You meant plenty, I cut in. You meant to sign away my land without permission. You meant to take the money and spend it on yourself. You meant to lie to this council about family consent. I only thought. You thought I was going to die, I said, my voice low but steady. And that made it all right in your mind. You thought robbing me blind was somehow protecting the family. He tried again. I was just securing our financial future. Our financial future, I said, shaking my head. Son, you sell tractors for a living. You make $78,000 a year. Before tonight, that was the sum total of your connection to our so-called financial future. The number hit him hard. He swallowed, face burning. Now you are unemployed, I said flatly. Ryan's head snapped up. What are you talking about? Agritech Innovations owns 31% of Midwest Farm Supply, I told him. As of this afternoon, your employment has been terminated. You cannot do that, he shouted. I already did. Kate calmly pulled out her phone. The termination notice went out an hour ago, she added. Ryan looked at her, then back at me, panic spreading across his face. You are destroying my life. I am not destroying anything, I replied. I am just pulling the sheet off what you built. And what you built, son, was nothing more than a house of cards, stacked with theft, lies, and disrespect. That kind of structure always collapses. I simply decided when the collapse would happen. The hall was so quiet you could hear someone breathing in the back row. Even Emily had stopped crying. So what happens now? Ryan finally whispered. Now. I leaned in. Now you get to learn what real outcomes look like. I turned to face the council. Before we go any further, I want to make something absolutely clear to the council and to everyone sitting in this room. The audience shifted, waiting. Westfield Development will not be building Foster Commons Shopping Center. What? Emily's voice cracked like glass. The project is canceled, I said. Effective immediately. You can't cancel it. Ryan blurted out. There are contracts, obligations. Actually, Kate cut in, flipping open her briefcase again. There are no binding obligations. The purchase agreement has a standard 10-day review period. That review period expires tomorrow. Agritech Innovations is exercising its right to terminate. Chairman Reynolds frowned. And what does that mean exactly? It means the sale is being reversed, Kate explained. The $1.2 million will be returned to Westfield Development Corporation, which means it flows right back to Agritech, which means, ultimately, it goes back to Mr. Foster. I looked at Ryan, watching the color drain from his face. The problem, son, is that the $1.2 million you burned through, that's still on you. That's your debt now. His voice cracked. My debt? How can it be my debt? You sold property that did not belong to you. You spent money that wasn't yours to spend. The law has a word for that, conversion. Civil law calls it damages. But I do not have $1.2 million, he stammered. I know, I said. That is your problem, not mine. Emily's tears returned. But we already spent it. Yes, I said evenly. On 6 weeks in the Maldives, first-class flights, dolphin tours, champagne breakfasts. $96,000 gone in a heartbeat. So I will ask again, where's the other $104,000? Ryan's lips pressed tight. Then, investments. What kind of investments? Emily spoke through tears. I started a consulting business. We needed startup money. A consulting business, I repeated. What exactly do you consult on? Social media strategy, she sniffed. Influencer marketing. Brand awareness. I nodded slowly. And how many clients do you have? It is still early, Ryan tried to cover. How many? We are developing the client base. Which means zero, I said. $14,000 spent to launch a business with no customers. Emily's chin quivered. It takes time to build a brand. No, I said coldly. It takes paying customers to build a business. Kate was already jotting notes. For the record, she announced, spending stolen money on speculative ventures does not reduce liability. In other words, you still owe every cent. Emily looked up at her. Even if we already spent it? Especially if you already spent it. I turned back to Ryan. And that is just the civil side. Now let's talk about the criminal side. Fraud in the first degree. Theft in the first degree. Both Class B felonies in Oregon. Ryan swallowed hard. Dad, you're not going to press charges against your own son. Am I not? I asked. You stole from me. You forged documents. You lied to banks. You lied to this council. You committed offenses. But I am your family. Family, I said, my voice sharp, doesn't rob family blind. I made a mistake. No, I said, shaking my head. You made choices. Over and over again. Signing papers. Spending money. Lying to people. That is not one mistake. It is a pattern. A plan. Emily was furiously scrolling on her phone now, probably trying to wipe the internet clean of her bragging posts. It will not matter, I told her. Screenshots last forever. And believe me, your posts showing off stolen money are already saved. She looked up at me, eyes red. I didn't know it was stolen. You helped plan it, I reminded her. I was just helping Ryan make financial decisions for his family. His family, I shot back. You have been married for 2 years. That farm represented 40 years of my sweat and sacrifice. And you thought you had the right to make decisions with it? Ryan tried to defend her. Dad said you couldn't manage it anymore. Ryan was wrong about a lot of things, I said. Then I looked around the hall. 85 pairs of eyes were on us, watching my son and daughter-in-law unravel in front of the whole town. This, I said to the crowd, is what happens when greed runs headlong into reality, when entitlement meets truth, when you underestimate the wrong man. Chairman Reynolds cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Foster, what are your intentions for the property? The farm, I said. It goes back to farming. The development is canceled. Westfield will restore the land to the condition it was in before the sale. And the town's development plans? He asked. Talk to me in a year, I said. When this storm is settled, maybe we can discuss real development. Development that helps the community instead of lining the pockets of opportunists. Ryan sat there staring at me, eyes hollow. Dad, what do you want me to do? I want you to face the results of your choices, I told him. What results? His voice cracked. Tomorrow morning, criminal charges will be filed. By the end of the week, a civil lawsuit will follow. His head jerked up. For how much? $2.6 million. He blinked. 2.6? The sale was only for 1.2. The sale price was 1.2, I explained. The real value of that land was 3.8. That gap, 2.6 million, is what you stole from me. That's the damage you caused. But I don't have 2.6 million, he whispered. I know. I don't have any money. I know that too. So what happens now? Asset forfeiture, wage garnishment, bankruptcy, whatever it takes to claw back what you owe. Emily lifted her tear-streaked face from her phone. What about our house? Is it compensated? We have a mortgage. Then it depends on how much equity you actually have, if any. Her lip trembled. What about Ryan's job? I met her eyes. He does not have one anymore. She tried again, desperate. What about my business? I almost laughed. You don't have a business. You have a website and an Instagram page. That isn't a business, it's a hobby. The truth was sinking in now. They had no cash, no stable income, and no real assets. Just mountains of debt, both legal and personal. Still, I gave them one small path forward. There is one option. Ryan's eyes flickered, a tiny ember of hope. What option? Full cooperation, I said. You come clean in the investigation. You hand over every financial record. You stand up publicly and admit what you did. And you make restitution. What kind of restitution? Community service, I said. 1,000 hours. You'll work on local farms. You'll haul, shovel, and sweat until you finally understand what actual work looks like. His jaw tightened. 1,000 hours? That's 20 hours a week for nearly a year. And if you do it, I'll consider reducing the civil claim to actual out-of-pocket expenses, $96,000 instead of $2.6 million. And the criminal charges? He asked quickly. That's up to the prosecutor, I told him. But cooperation might make them more lenient. He turned to Emily. She was still crying, still scrolling her phone like answers might pop up on the screen. She shook her head. We don't even have 96,000. Then you'll pay it down for as long as it takes, I said. Dad, he pleaded, this is my life you're talking about. No, Ryan. This is the life you chose the moment you forged my signature and sold land that wasn't yours. I turned back toward the council. I'm sorry for hijacking your meeting, but I wanted the town to hear the truth. Chairman Reynolds shook his head. No apology necessary, Mr. Foster. I think this has been eye-opening. I looked at Ryan one last time. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Charges get filed at 9 o'clock, with or without you. He swallowed hard. Dad, don't call me that. I cut him off. You lost that right the day you sold my farm. I gathered my coat and walked toward the exit. Kate scooped up her papers and followed. At the door, I paused, glanced back. Oh, and Ryan? I said, update your LinkedIn profile. You're going to need a new job. The last sound I heard before the door shut was Emily's panicked voice. What the hell are we supposed to do now? That was no longer my problem. 3 days later, the story hit the front page of the Oregonian. Billionaire farmer exposes son's land fraud. Big headline. Ryan's mugshot. A glossy photo of the farm he tried to steal. The reporter had done her homework, interviewed council members, pulled corporate filings, and even dug up Emily's vacation posts. The glossy Instagram photos looked a lot different in black and white newsprint. Champagne flutes and dolphin tours lose their sparkle when the caption beneath them reads, paid for by fraud while father recovers from heart surgery. On October 4th, the sheriff's office made it official. Ryan Foster was arrested. Fraud in the first degree. Theft in the first degree. Falsifying documents. And when prosecutors pieced together Emily's role, they tacked on conspiracy charges too. Ryan's bail was set at $50,000. He could not raise it. Emily scrambled to start a GoFundMe page titled Help Ryan Foster, target of family legal conflict. It brought in a grand total of $237 before the platform shut it down for misrepresentation. That is when the media storm really began. Local television picked up the story first, then CNN, then Fox News. By the weekend, the headlines were everywhere. Billionaire farmer versus greedy son. On Twitter, it was trending. Emily's online following ballooned almost overnight. 15,000 Instagram followers became 47,000. People were not following out of sympathy. They followed because they wanted a front-row seat to a slow-motion car wreck. Emily tried to spin it, pitching authentic lifestyle content from a real family crisis. Brands wanted nothing to do with it. Authentic or not, fraud is still fraud. No company wanted their name tied to it. On November 15th, Ryan stood before a judge and entered a guilty plea. The prosecutor had offered him a deal: 5 years probation, 1,000 hours of community service, and complete restitution. In exchange, he had to admit guilt and cooperate with the civil lawsuit. He took the offer. 2 weeks later, Emily filed for divorce. Irreconcilable differences. She kept the wedding ring. I kept everything else. By the 1st of December, the farm was completely restored. Westfield Development was compelled to pull up every survey marker, every engineering stake, and cancel every permit. The cleanup alone cost them $47,000. I hired 3 local contractors to finish the job: Millbrook Valley people, Millbrook Valley workers. The town council issued me a formal apology at their December meeting. I accepted. No hard feelings. They were misled like everyone else. Agritech Innovations, under my direction, launched the Foster Agricultural Scholarship Fund with a $2 million endowment. Full scholarships for farm kids who wanted to study agricultural technology. The very first award went to Anna Green, granddaughter of Chairman Reynolds. Straight A student, champion in 4-H competitions, and a young woman determined to study agricultural engineering at Oregon State. I attended her ceremony, wearing my best pair of overalls. Ryan started his community service in January. 20 hours each week at the Collins family farm 5 miles south. Old man Collins made sure Ryan earned every hour. Mucking stalls, hauling feed, mending fences. No air conditioning, no corporate card, no Instagram filters. Just sweat, dirt, and honest labor. By February, the civil case reached settlement. Ryan signed an agreement to repay $96,000 in restitution. $500 a month for 16 years. That was his deal. He found work at the local feed store, minimum wage, stacking 50-pound bags of grain into pickup beds. The first real job he had worked in years. I saw him there once. March 10th. I was picking up seed for spring planting. He looked older, thinner, a little worn down, but less arrogant. He carried the seed bags to my truck himself. He nodded at me, respectful. I nodded back. No words passed between us, but the gesture mattered. It was progress. The farm is thriving again. Corn, soybeans, winter wheat, the same crops my great-grandfather planted a century ago. This time, the fields are wired with Agritech's newest soil detectors. Real-time data tracking every detail. The technology supports the land. That is how it was always meant to be. People sometimes ask me if I forgive him. That is the wrong question. Forgiveness is not about erasing the past. It is about recognizing it and deciding how to live after it. Ryan chose theft. I chose accountability. He chose deceit. I chose truth. Those were not emotional decisions. They were practical. Respect is not inherited. It is earned. And family does not give you a free pass to steal from the people who love you. Ryan is learning that lesson the hard way. But at least he is learning. Maybe in 10 years, when the restitution is finally compensated, when the community service hours are long behind him, when he understands what sweat-soaked work truly feels like, we will sit down and talk again. If we do, it will not be about money, inheritance, or entitlement. It will have to be built on respect, mutual respect, earned respect. The only kind that lasts. Have you ever had family take advantage of your kindness? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes, the hardest lessons in life come from the people closest to us.